get into this. You know, I work with a lot of people who have been unemployed now for over 6 months, and they are over age 55, and they're getting to a point where they're being overcome by fear. So, first off, the first thing that I want to know, or not want to know, but I want to acknowledge and validate to you is that yes, there is such a thing as ageism, and yes, it is discrimination, but it happens all the time. And today in this workshop, we're going to talk about one, how to overcome it. I'm also going to talk about refreshing your skills and some of your strategies on your resume, cover letters, and interviews, and what does that actually look like? What does it mean when I say refresh? I'm going to talk to you more about exploring networking and technology tools. The truth of the matter is the quickest way still to this day to get a job falls down to who you know. That is still the quickest way. So I want to encourage you to continue doing your networking, learn about the wages and the benefits and how to negotiate. So that's one of the things we're going to talk today about. How do you actually do that? And then I also want you to consider starting your own business. And alive, many of you have these gifts and talents, and you have always wanted to start your own business, but you've never had the time. You've never been able to consider it or even start to get into that creative process. When here, we as a society need exactly what you would like to provide as a service, maybe now is the time to take a second look at it. Okay, so like I say, let's get into this. So let's talk just a little bit about ageism in the workplace. 32% of human resource professionals say that age plays a role in their hiring decisions. 32%. And 26% of workers 50 plus report age-related remarks at work. You know, I just picked with a lady, I don't know, this is probably a couple of months ago, and she actually felt like she's being bullied at work because of her age. And what she said to me was, Gloria, I was working with a lot of youngsters. They were always commenting on how old I am. And so I decided to quit my job. I couldn't handle working with people like that. Don't do that. Don't do that type of stuff. Want to remind you that first off, you can never make a change if you quit. And then second off, the wisdom you have, you paid a high price for. Call us at the Career Force as job counselors and let us walk you through if you are experiencing age discrimination or some of these types of situations. Boy, we have seen many different scenarios and we have the expertise to help you to continue to keep that good job, but then not let it affect you on the job as well. Age discrimination in the Employment Act, like I say, it protects workers from age discrimination. Yes, it's illegal, but it happens all the time. Here's the beauty. Employers are considering the older population more than ever. I don't even like the word older population. I love calling us seasoned or people with great wisdom. But here's the deal. One of the reasons that employers are considering all different types of populations is based off of supply and demand. We all know that if you can't find somebody to work, your doors will close. You might not end up having a business. I've had employers actually call me and say, Glory, please send me some bodies. If you don't send me somebody to work, I'm going to have to close my doors. That's what I come in and say. Have you considered the older worker? And again, I don't like calling us older, but I want the employer to understand that I'm not talking an actual age, but I'm talking about a seasoned person, an experienced person, someone with wisdom, work ethics, integrity. This next slide, shifting your mindset, is my most favorite. Now, whether or not you believe me, if you don't believe me, that's okay. I love to have a challenge. Go online and do a little bit of research. But you know, this saying, you're only as old as you feel. So there's research out there now, and due to the excellent technology we have, they can actually prove this by doing through brain mapping. I have studied this. My degree is in psychology, so I'm very passionate about how do people age and how come I can, walk down the street and see somebody who looks like they're in their 30s, but they're really 60, and then I see someone that's in their uh, 60s and they look like they're 30. How is that? How does that work? So what they're finding out is that what you're telling yourself is how your body reacts. So, I was talking to a gentleman recently, and he was younger than me. He doesn't know my age. We're talking on the phone. And he referred to himself as being old 9 times in that one phone call. And he doesn't say I'm old. He would say, well, for my age, well, back in my day, well, we don't do it that way anymore. He said, well, what are you counting? How many times I'm referring to my age? I said, yeah, I am. Because I told him, I said, you're younger than me. You've referred to yourself about how old you are 9 different times through this short phone conversation. Are you doing that at the interview? Are you talking the person who's interviewing you out of hiring you? Goodness, I interviewed many people and they would say stuff to me like, well, I can't do that because I'm not willing to work like that anymore. Let me give you a good example. A construction worker, goodness sakes, they're hard working, nail and hammer and physical and carrying heavy stuff and strong. Well, maybe as you get older, you don't want to work that physical portion of it, but goodness sakes, that wisdom that you earned building that house, starting from the hammer and the nail all the way to completion, is so valuable to anybody else out there. So instead of having to do the work, you could be the supervisor and delegate who's doing the work. You could start open your own business. Because of that wisdom that you have, you can run with this and make a lot of money. So play on your strengths. We're reliable problem solvers. We have experience. You need to tell yourself that I am the best person for this job. If you don't believe you are the best person for the job before you go into the interview, one, reach out to us. Let us do a mock interview with you. And then two, do you know as an interviewer how many times I would say before I came in to interview you, please just interview well because I need your help. And instead, I would sit down and interview and you would talk me out of hiring you. Also, adapt to the tactics that are in today's market. Use the industry's buzzwords. If the industry's calling it, now I'm just making this very basic, but if they're calling it customer service and you used to be called a customer representative, good grief, you're now going to be a customer service person. Point being, I always say, what do you care what your title is as long as it's not illegal? And as long as you're doing what the employer is asking you to do, and that's not illegal, do how the employer asks you to do it. Sometimes we get so set in our ways that there's opportunities that are being presented to us and we're actually refusing them. I would like to see on your resume you put the words love to learn. There's a lot of people out there who, like I say, they're set in their ways. They hate change. We all know that change is always happening, whether we like it or not. Doesn't mean it stops. But my point being is that you want to do the job the way the employer wants it done. You let them know that even on your resume. Another piece that's changed is networking. So we all know that used to be that we did all of our networking in person. Well, obviously now that's changed online because of social media. So please make sure that your social media is appropriate. If it is not, please have it locked down tight. If you don't know how to do that, have your grandchild teach you how. I mean, it's amazing how they know much more about how to operate our phones than we probably do. I'm teasing about this, but you get my point. Virtual interviewing. I work with a lot of people who they have never done a virtual interview ever. Age does not have anything to do with this. How about you? How have you changed since the last time you were looking for work? And then please make sure that you're matching your skills to the skills that are listed. I worked with a gentleman who he was a vice president of a company, and he did that for several years. Then he contacted me and he said, Glory, I have been applying and applying, and nobody's even interviewing me. And I said, okay, so first off, send me your resume. So I took a look at his resume. I said, wow, very impressive. What types of jobs are you applying for? And he said, I actually want to just go to Quick Trip. I want to be a cashier. I don't want to think about any troubles. I don't want to hear about the troubles. I just want to do customer service. I'm sick of having all that responsibility. And they said, well, you know what? The way your resume is presenting right now, there's no way that you're going to get an interview at Quick Trip, because they're going to look at it and they're going to say, why in the world would a vice president want to come and work at Quick Trip as a cashier? Makes no sense to me, throws up a red flag right away. So I said, I'm going to tell you something that's going to be painful right now, but this is what I encourage you to do. Remove your title, your job title, remove vice president. In your cover letter, I want you to write, in my past roles, I played supervisor, or I was a supervisor for many years, but now want to reduce my responsibilities. I call that addressing the elephant in the room. Point being, are you presenting yourself for what the job's looking for? Are you presenting yourself on your resume for what the employer's looking for? When they ask you at the interview, tell me about yourself, are you actually lining up with what the employer's looking for? Or are you lining up with what you think the employer's looking for? That's a big difference. I also want to encourage you to reach out to the people who are now doing the work that you want to do. Goodness sakes, I have worked with people who they do one profession for 20 years, and then they're like, I'm sick of doing this. I want to do something totally different, Glory. Can you help me do that? Well, first you need to ask yourself, do you have the competitive skills to do the new job? Let's say the answer is no. No, you don't. You've never done this type of work before. Again, reach out to us, because maybe you need a certificate. We have resources that might help you get that certificate. You may qualify for some assistance. Ask yourself, do I want this job, and why do I want this job? Do a little research on the company. I also love, if I can, to reach out to an employer. Excuse me, I said the wrong word. Employee, someone who's already working there. I love to rub elbows with someone who's already working there and say, okay, how did you get this job? What do you think of working for this employer? What did you say at the interview? Could I use you for a reference? Do you have any suggestions for me? Okay, let's say that you want to go into a profession, you've never been there, and you do not know anybody. Let's say that you move to a new town. You don't know anybody to talk to. All the advice that I just gave you sounds great, but let's say you're in a situation where you don't know anybody. Well, then I want to encourage you to do what's called the informational interview. Sorry. With an informational interview, for some reason that's a mouthful for me today, you're going to actually sit down with possibly human resources, but what you're going to do is you're going to set up an appointment and you're going to say, I really would like to be an employee for your company. I was wondering if I could just meet with you, because I have a few questions for you before I actually apply. Another great part about networking too is that you find the jobs that nobody else has posted. So let me give you an example on that one. Oftentimes when you're looking for a job, it's so easy to get discouraged because you feel like you're the only one out there doing this. I want to encourage you to consider doing a little bit of volunteer work. I don't mean 40 hours a week. I mean maybe 2 hours a week. Consider your local animal shelter, food shelf, clothing store, thrift shop. There's all kinds of different areas. But I know it's proven fact that if I can give to someone, it is reciprocal. It tends to come back to me. Now, I'm not giving to get blessed, but I end up accidentally blessed. So here's a real life example. When I was the operations manager of the nonprofit, I had many volunteers, probably 45 to 50, working all at one time, and they all had their tasks. Many of them were coming off of, maybe they hadn't been in the work industry for a while, or maybe they had just retired and wanted to get into helping people. Whatever their reason was, I got to know you. So let's pretend that was you. So you're volunteering for me, you're coming in, you're helping people. Now I have a business owner come in and give a donation, and that business owner says to me, Glory, so I just had a guy walk off the job today, and I wanted to ask you, do you by any chance know of anybody that's looking for a job? Well, guess what? You're going to be the first person I'm going to refer. And do you know why? Because first off, you're not discouraged, and you said straight up to me, Glory, I would love to volunteer for you. I love, helping the community, but I also am looking for a job. So, do you know of anybody that's hiring? Meaning that you let me know you're looking for a job. Here's what happens a lot of times with us when we're looking for a job for a while, we get discouraged, and then pretty soon, even our body language changes. No more good eye contact, our shoulders leaning forward. You start telling yourself all kinds of negative things like you're never going to work again. That is not true. The truth is that what you believe is true. Henry Ford said that if you believe it's true or if you don't believe it's true, you're right. Interesting, huh? So you want to create relationships that they're going to think of you first when something comes up. Goodness sakes, if Mr. or Mrs. Employer does not have to go to post that job, put it on a job board, but instead can go off of a referral that I just gave, do you realize too how much time and money that saves everyone? You can start earning a living very quickly or a lot quicker, and the employer can get their needs met too. And it's a win-win situation all the way around. Sandra, I just wanted to check in with you to see if you do have any questions. I'm not sure if I have flames that are going to show up.
I'm here, and
Okay.
I've been flaming you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't.
That's okay.
I
That's
don't
okay.
see any of them. Sorry, folks.
And I can't raise my hand. Okay. So no, no, no. I didn't know that if you knew that we can see the slide and the next slide with the speaker notes. If
Oh,
that
good
was intentional on
grief.
your part.
No,
I
that is
had
not.
texted you earlier, but I think I'm having internet issues because I've been trying to do certain things that moderators normally do, and they're not happening.
Yeah.
So I think it's our internet connection here at North, but yeah, so I think you're in presenter mode, not presentation mode for the PowerPoint.
Okay.
So you have to go to the little
Okay.
screen. So I would close out and restart and see if that helps.
Oh, yeah, I'm scared to do that because we might lose the whole thing. So,
Okay.
you guys,
People were asking for a bigger screen.
okay, so this is, let me just see if I can do this correctly.
You might need to show the other screen. So if you have
That's what I'm thinking.
okay, that's what someone just put in the, so you need to share the other screen. So now I can just see us, our name.
Okay.
Feel free
And
to break in
entire
and flow if you
screen. How about, I'm really hoping this worked, guys.
honest to God, that's the best.
Oh, happy day. See,
That's the
this
best.
is how life works, isn't it? Things are not perfect, but this is a great example, you guys, of problem solving through virtual technology.
And,
Goodness grief.
and
So
people are
I,
asking more
yes,
specific questions. So, as you and I recommend during these workshops, is that it's really great to connect with somebody at a workforce location um, to answer
yes,
them because there's nuances and answers.
that is the truth. And when we're getting into really specific situations, we can give you excellent answers more one on one. I do want to encourage you that if you have any questions, to at least put them in the chat because they might be very applicable for people who have the same question. But also know this that after the workshop, we do print the chat too and scour it to make sure that we can get you connected to some of those answers too. I wanted to give you a quick example here too about actual problem solving through technology and virtual interviewing. Now, with virtual interviewing, the good news is that you're doing it right now, meaning that you're using the chat. You know, Sandra and I are giving an example of what do you do when your camera doesn't turn on? Well, you just move forward. Um, I had a gentleman who came in, and I want you to know this too, you guys, that let's say that you have an employer call you, they want to do a virtual interview and you don't even have a computer, or you certainly don't want to do your virtual interview on your phone if you don't have to. That's not the ideal. Of course, we do whatever we can with what we have, but I'm telling you that you can come down to your local career force and use our equipment. Okay, so anyways, this gentleman came in. Here's the beauty of this: if you use our equipment, is that we will troubleshoot with you and make sure everything's working correctly. In addition to that, you want to get a backup phone number, and you want to be able to, I would always suggest that you do a mock interview with us. What we do when we're talking to you about doing the mock interview is we're going to set up your background. We're going to talk about choosing good lighting. Let me touch base here on this good lighting thing. If you have too much light, it can wash you out. If you don't have enough light, employers have told me that it seems like you are giving the impression you're hiding something. And then also people have asked me about backgrounds. Where do you stand, Gloria, on on having backgrounds? So a background would be where I could actually, if you could see me on video right now, I could make it so it looks like I'm in Paris. Coolest thing ever. Don't do that. What I have seen happen, and this has happened when we've done all kinds of different virtual meetings, is that if you have background, sometimes if you move your head off to the right a little bit or off to the left, it's not centered, half of your face disappears. Or you have what I call trailing. So it's like a light that trails you behind your movement. And that can be very distracting. You want to make sure the employer is one, paying attention to what you're saying, paying attention to you, not what's going on in your background. I had a gentleman one time just recently that I did a virtual, and he had a couple things in his background that were like knickknacks, but good Lord, they were presenting as something totally different than what they were. Well, he would have never known that. My prediction is what they were presenting like, I don't know if he would have got the job. So he's like, good grief, Glory, I'm glad you told me that. Moved him, and he did get hired. I'm not saying it got hired just because of that. I'm just saying that you want to make sure that you're not losing out on that job because of something that's in your background. Another thing that's really interesting is that you need to know where the camera is on your computer so that you can maintain good eye contact. You maintain eye contact and smile as if you were in person. Make sure your audio is good. Make sure that they can hear you well. There's nothing more frustrating than audio being poor and they're getting every other word. Now, getting back to my story. So I have this guy, he's using our equipment. He did get a backup phone number, thank goodness. I know I've already talked about this, but this is so super important. So let's say Sandra and I are doing this workshop and all of a sudden everything went down. I am going to call Sandra right away on the phone and say, help, what do we do? That happens the same with this virtual interviewing. So I'm going to give you a case scenario. I call you up from human resources. I say to you, I'd like to do a virtual interview with you tomorrow. And you don't have any equipment. You don't tell me that. What I want you to say is, great, what time would you like me to come in? You get it all set up. Contact us here at the Career Force. But before you hang up, you're going to say, could I get a backup phone number in case my technology doesn't work the way I would like it to? All right, this gentleman, he ended up, of course, internet goes down. Never had that happen. I don't, you guys, I don't think I've had that happen since. In my recollection, it's only happened once during that four guys interview. All right, so what happens is the internet goes down. He comes running out into the hallway. Glory, glory, the internet went down. What do I do? So first off, I want you to take a deep breath. Did you get that backup phone number? And he said, yes, I did. I said, listen, this is an excellent opportunity for you to actually show them how good you are at problem solving. I want you to go in there very calmly, call them back, and complete this interview. You got this. You know that he ended up getting hired. And again, a lot of it is that I might have problem solver on my resume, but what does that really mean? Do I really know how to problem solve? Or does it just sound good? Now I just proved to you that I do know how to problem solve. Okay, Sandra, Wanted to check in one more time with you. How are we doing on questions?
We're doing good. There have
Okay.
been people who have suggested AI to help with some of the issues
Yes.
they're talking about, but we'll talk about that later, right?
Yes. Yes, we
One,
will. Yes. Yep.
one of the things that was brought up that you might want to address is glare on glasses.
Oh, that's a good one. So one of the things you can do is you can get the blue screen that actually it's like almost like a flip chart that will flip over your screen that prevents any glare. So it would prevent glare from your glasses extruding out, but also glare from your glasses coming to you too, because it can work both ways. Those are accommodations that we would want to set up again before. But one thing before you actually go out and spend any money and get something that would help with glare on your glasses, let us verify if there really is glare coming off of how you're presenting on that virtual interview because it might not be as bad as you think it is. Now, next thing I want you to consider is how have you changed? How do you feel about looking for employment? Do those feelings show? So when I'm interviewing you, can I get a sense of that your previous employer things didn't go well? Because the answer should be no. When I'm working with the employers, I ask them, what's the most important thing to you when you're hiring someone? Do you know that I have, and of course it's illegal, so I'm not saying they would just freely say this, but I have strong connections with some of these employers who would feel comfortable to say things. Um, and of course I would correct them, but none of them have ever said to me, um, well, I'm concerned about hiring someone who is too old. None of them have ever said that to me. I have had them say, concerned about hiring someone who's too young. Isn't that interesting? But the two things that they do say is that they want to find out, are you the type of person that's going to come in here and get along well with everybody? And then also, the second thing is their reputation. Now, let's say that your previous job was horrible, you were treated badly, and it was an awful experience and you're struggling with getting over that. Please again, reach out to us. Don't go in an interview with those harbored feelings from that previous employer and do not allow that previous employer to rob your future job. Now, the deal is I've had employers say to me, my reputation, Gloria, is so important to me that I would rather hire somebody who doesn't know the job, who's never done this in their life before. They come in and tell me that they believe in my mission statement and that they love to learn. I'd rather teach that person than hire the person who is totally difficult to get along with and knows how to do the job backwards and forwards. Please remember that. What makes you a better candidate today than you were the last time that you interviewed? And ask yourself, what are your goals? A lot of times I work with people too who, let's say they haven't worked for 6 months, or let's throw it out there a year. No, let's take it a step further. I work with people who they'll come to me and they'll say, Glory, so I actually haven't worked for the last year. Like, okay, so tell me what you've been doing for the last year. Well, I was taking care of my parents, ended up getting COVID, and as a result, they both passed away. This is real life stuff. And that is horrible, horrible. But to tell me you haven't worked for the past year when you're actually taking care of your parents, I'm sorry, but that's the toughest job ever. It's a job where, thank goodness, you could be there for your family. I'm all about that. And to me, that's the most important thing in life. But you're working. So let's take a look at this. You're caregiving, you're giving medical rides, you're doing medication applications, making sure they're getting the right medication administration, not application. You're making sure that their care is the best possible. That's working. Do you see how we can take a lot of those skills and transfer them into almost any other type of position? Because there's many jobs out there that are looking for the same and similar. But to think in your head that you haven't done any work for the last year simply isn't true. I want you to give yourself credit for what you've done. But again, that's one of the things that's how you changed and evolved. But you're not recognizing it as skills, and yet it is. Now, this slide is one of my most favorites, and I know it's easy to say. This one, really, Glory? Yeah, this one is. Here's the reason. I want to encourage you to get out just a blank piece of paper. Not right now. You're going to get a copy of this, so you can do this after. But get out a blank piece of paper, and I would draw a T right down the middle of it. On the left-hand side, and then these 3 bullets on the right-hand side are coming from my experience. So let me use the
Lori,
first one. Yes.
sorry to interrupt, but I
No,
lost your sound, so I don't know if others did.
you
Um,
lost my sound?
but now you're back.
Okay.
Um, so it was maybe 2 sentences before what you just said.
Okay. Um, Shucks, I wish
Okay,
I could just hit rewind here in my head.
yeah, so
Um,
other people couldn't hear it either.
okay, so you know what? Let's just start at this. I'll start with the T table or the T chart slide.
Okay,
Um,
on the left-hand side is where you ended.
Perfect. Okay. So on the left-hand side, it says bullet items from job listings. These 3 bullet points came directly off of the job description. And on the right-hand side is my experience. So I'm going to use this first one as an example. So it says recruiting team members. So that's what the employer's got on his job description, and that's what they're looking for. Part of your job would be to recruit team members. All right. So my experience in the past was I exceeded all recruitment goals by attending job fairs and sourcing new applicants from various job boards. Now I want to add one more piece. If you can add in percentages and numbers to this, that makes your experience even more powerful. And I always say that you are the director of the story in my head. You are the person who's being interviewed. You are the director of the story, the interviewee, me in my head. So make sure I can follow what you're saying. That's why I encourage a mock interview. Good grief, there's been times when it sounds real good up in my head, but as soon as I start saying it, it's like, that's not what I meant to say. And then there's nothing worse than being in an interview and saying, good grief, how did I get here and how do I get out of this rabbit hole? So just let me give you an example on the percentages or numbers. Let's say that I exceeded all recruitment goals by attending 52 job fairs and hiring an additional 5 people who brought our sales up by 50% or from $500 a week to $2,500 a week. I think you got this, right? Point being is that whatever you can do to make your story here more impactful is what you're going to want to do. But I want to point out to you that they're not hitting all things that are in the job description. They just pulled out 3. And I love this because less is more. Now, what I do with this is I take this information and I transfer this after I've written it right onto a T cover letter. So it's a beautiful thing. What they say right now with cover letters is that human resources 9 times out of 10 do not read them. And if they do, it's a quick breeze. You know, I've heard they spend 2 to 3 seconds on your cover letter. I'm not 100% sure if that's true, but I've worked with people who they've spent 3 days working on the cover letter. Now, please don't do that. Your cover letter is a great space for you to introduce yourself, but in your follow-up email, you're going to get the formatted T cover letter, and it's going to let you see how, yeah, you know what, human resources can look at this in 2 to 3 seconds. 1, they're going to see that I read the job description, and 2, they're going to see very quickly I qualify, and they're going to decide to interview me within 2 to 3 seconds because that's all the time I have. It also is a great opportunity to set yourself apart. You guys would not believe how many times I would look at resumes and cover letters and think to myself, good grief, did you even read the job description? please make sure that you're using the job posting or the job description as your guide. I always say that within that job description are nuggets and exactly the tools and the tricks of the trade on what the employer is looking for. So I'm going to take that job description and boy, I'm going to highlight everything and make sure it's on my resume. Now, I've had people say, well, Corey, so what are you saying that I have to create a resume every job I apply for? Well, here is what I say. Yes. Now, what I say is that you create one good resume, which I call the foundation. Foundation is what you're going to build off of. So you're not going to recreate the wheel every time. But what I do is, let's say I'm going to apply with ABC Supply, just making the company up here. Okay, so I'm going to apply with ABC Supply. I'm going to have my foundation resume, which has all of my skills, my information, my chronological job history, my contact information, but it's a resume I will never send anyone because it's the foundation. It's the one I'm going to build off of. But I will take that resume, then go into my foundation resume and rename it ABC Supply. And now I'm going to take off the nuggets and the information off of the job description from ABC Supply and make sure every single one of those minimum requirements are on my resume. And I mean word for word. I've had people say, what, are you telling me to cut and paste? You know what? Some of these situations, in order to overcome AI or applicant tracking systems, which are software that read your resume, you have to use the job description's buzzwords. Otherwise, AI or the applicant tracking systems don't recognize synonyms and they kick you out as if you don't qualify. Here you do. And a human being never sees your resume. And you're sitting at home thinking they're not interviewing you because you're too old. Don't be that person. So make sure that you're asking yourself too, why am I interested in this line of work? Does your previous experience relate? And if it doesn't, reach out to us because sometimes when I'm working with people, good grief, their previous experience is almost same and very similar. And you could fit into a different role, different job title, take the skills you've already have, maybe add a few more at that new role, and you would be happy as could be. So I'm just saying, let us help you with this because sometimes just this question, how does your previous experience relate? You might be going through the wrong filter and thinking to yourself, I don't know the answer to that, and I don't think it does relate. Maybe it does, but let us help you with that because we know those buzzwords in the industry. Moving on, let's talk about resumes. Resumes are completely different than what we used to do years ago. So I spoke a little bit about how we're going to tailor our resume, but let me ask you something. If you look at your resume that you have right now that you've been sending out to everyone, can I, Glory Mitchell here in Duluth, Minnesota, figure out how old you are? Just by looking at your resume. Do you think I can figure out how old you are? I don't need your name. I don't need the town. I don't need how to get a hold of you. Can I figure out how old you are? Something's wrong then. Okay, if you're going back to 1983 telling me that you worked at McDonald's, first off, does that apply to the new job and why do I need to know that? I want you to focus on the last 10 at the most max 15 years of experience. Now, you can see that we have written in this bubble here, it says, but I've worked for the last 30 years for the same company. So, Glory, what you're telling me is that I can't put that I worked for ABC Supply for the last 30 years. I'm very proud of that, and I are. Yep, straight up. That's what I'm telling you. Do not put the last 30 years. So what you're going to do is you're going to have your work history. You're going to have on there ABC Supply. Now remember, this is resumes. This is not the application. So I'm going to touch base on that in a minute, but please stay with me here. We're talking about your resume. On your resume, if you do an objective, which we don't necessarily even do objectives anymore, but if you do one, I want you to say 10 plus years of experience with ABC Supply. I wouldn't actually put the company there. But I'm just using that as an example. So I would put 10 plus years of experience in customer service, 15 plus years of experience in customer service. When you're getting into your other related experience, do you have stuff on there that doesn't even apply to the job? Don't list your graduation. Why do I need to know the year you graduated? Unless it was within the last 4 years, there is no reason I need to know. And if you have computer skills and training, highlight that only if the employer is looking for it. But let's say that you don't. Reach out to us because we may be able to refer you to some resources who can help you to make sure that you do have what the company's looking for. Maybe they're asking for a certificate. Boy, we do have resources that may be able to help you get that certificate. Point being, if you are questioning this, again, let us take a look at your resume and we're going to walk you through this. Interview tips. So I want you to be prepared to answer some of those open-ended questions. And those open-ended questions are, tell me about yourself. Good grief, when I was taught to be an interviewer, I was taught to ask you that. Tell me about yourself. And then I was taught to put zippers on my lips and to let you go ahead and talk. Those open-ended questions are where I can really gather a lot of information. I can't legally ask you how old you are, but here is what you say to me. I'll tell you, thank you for coming in to interview, and then I will say, tell me about yourself, and you will say stuff like this. Well, I was born in so-and-so. I've been married for this many years, and I haven't worked now for ABC, and I just need a job. Yeah, I know you would never say that because you're smarter than that. But I would sometimes be taken back, like, that was not exactly what I meant, but good to know. Highlight the skills and the problem-solving experience that you have that the employer is looking for. Keep your examples relevant and current. Don't say, well, back in 1983, I used to. Stay professional and confident and be aware of illegal questions. So, meaning age, retirement. If you have questions about this, I want to encourage you to attend the interview workshop because you're going to get a lot more detail about this. I'm just briefly touching this for we don't have enough time to really get into this, but I want you to know that it is not illegal if you tell me. So all I asked you was tell me about yourself, and you told me how old you are. You told me you have children. You told me you have grandchildren. You told me you're married. You told me your religious preference. You told me your sexual preference, and you told me that you might be hurting financially because you just need a job, and that's really what all you care about. You have no concern about what this position even entails. See how that's perceived? When that isn't true, I want you to be that one step above others. Negotiating wage. Let's talk a little bit about that. One of the things that I want to encourage you to do, and Sandra, I would like for you to put this in the chat if you could for me, Career One Stop. So let's say that you're looking at a company off of Minnesota Works. You found the job you want to apply for, but you're not sure what they're paying. You can go on Career One Stop and see what that industry pays. Really cool. And what I mean by that is pay range. Okay, it's not exact pay range, but at least then you can decide, okay, so is this going to be able to put food on my family's table or should I keep looking? Then in addition to that, I want you to take into a few things into consideration here that can be super important. When you are looking at wage, just don't look at the dollar amount. I want you to look at the full benefit package. If they don't have any information online about a full benefit package, that probably means they don't have one. Think about this. If you're a company and you have great benefits, why would you not let everybody know that, right? Okay, so another thing is, do they have paid time off? Do they have vacation? Do they offer insurance? Do they offer any type of flexibility? What kind of insurance do they offer? Is it medical, vision, dental? Be open to compromise, but do not give the employer ultimatums. well, either you're going to give me this or I'm not going to consider this job. Don't approach it that way. A lot of people who are working out there, there's who are working, their significant other has, for instance, a great medical package. So you wouldn't need to take a medical package that they may be offering. Well, you could say to the employer, I don't need to take the medical package. So would you by chance consider giving me an additional week of vacation instead? Recognize and advocate the value of your wisdom and your experience. I always say, good grief, the wisdom that I have, I paid a high price for. But you know what? I can make you a lot of money and I'll make some money too. I also want you to consider a self employment. We briefly touched on that earlier, but some people in this workshop right now have a genius idea that we're just waiting for as a society, but you haven't had time to pursue it. We have different resources we can connect you with that we're going to help you explore it. And it's also going to give you an idea of, should I continue to pursue this? What do I need to do to help you write a business plan? Risks and rewards of being your own boss. It's something that I want you to at least consider. Let's talk about possible barriers. Common mistakes out there, good grief. Many of them are being overqualified. So that vice president who wanted to work at Quick Trip, losing momentum. Looking for a job is a job, but I got to tell you, it's one of the toughest jobs out there. How about, is your narrative negative? And are you updating your skills? I am really hoping that by the time this workshop is over, you're going to be able to have some really good tools to be able to answer some of these questions so that you can take care of this before it becomes a self barrier. So, age is an asset, it is not a barrier. I tell myself I'm getting younger and younger every day. Now, I wish you guys could see me because you'll say, well, Glory, maybe the old clock or the video camera doesn't agree with that. It doesn't matter. What matters to me is what I believe. And the truth is that the wisdom I have, I want to share it with people. And also, when I'm being interviewed, they don't drill down on me, the interviewer, and say, so, Glory, I want to know exactly when and where you learned customer service. And oh, by the way, what time was it when you learned that too? We get hung up on some of these things like, don't matter. Stay current with the technology and the trends and negotiate with confidence. Explore your employment office options and contact our local office. Let us help you. There is no reason for you to be sitting at home suffering. You don't need to. And like I say, we have been there, done that. We've been in your shoes. So let us be that help that will assist you in making some good choices. I wanted to just leave this our QR code up for a minute. If you do have your phone handy, you can take a quick picture of it, and it will bring you to the Career Force website. And then I am going to go on to questions. And Sandra, looks to me like we got 7 minutes left for questions. I'm hoping you guys have some questions.
There's been a lot of mutual support in the chat, which is very nice.
Excellent.
I added another resource, ONET Online,
Excellent.
to get
Excellent.
information. Somebody, to prove your point, said that they applied for a role that was a little lower, but it came with a large 401k match, over 20 days vacation, and very affordable health insurance.
Oh, whoever added that, thank you for saying that. A lot of times when we're at some workshops or hearing somebody else speak, you kind of like, well, whatever. Easy for you to say. But exactly, that person that put that in the chat, thank you, because that's reinforcing what I'm saying. But not only that, what the employers are saying. And that's what matters.
Right, and again, we got the questions about how do you answer the question about why you were let go. Please call your local career force location. They're there
Yeah,
to
you know what, Sandra? I can answer that one. I'm
Okay,
comfortable with answering that one.
go for
Okay,
it,
so
Lori.
let's say that at the last job you were fired. We're just going to throw that out there. Boom, gone for whatever reason. Now I'm interviewing you. I've first off, if you're going into that interview, I want to hire you. you've proven to me that you may be the best person for the job. So now I'm giving you a chance. Now, if, please do not assume I'm going to even ask you this question, why you left your last job. Many employers have removed that question from even asking. Now, I asked a couple employers, why did you remove that question? And they said, because when I asked that question, Glory, people talked me out of hiring them. They gave me too much information. All right, let's pretend that Glory's getting interviewed and I just got fired at my last job. So the interviewer says to me, Glory, everything looks good here, but I do have one question for you. Why did you leave your last job? Well, Mr. Employer, that is a great question. So I ended up leaving my last job because I was involuntarily separated. But as a result, it has brought me here to you today. Hopefully that's going to be enough. Now, let's say that Mr. Employer is like involuntarily separated. What in heavenly days does that mean? I mean, we're really at an interview here now, and Mr. Employer just said that to you. Great question. So what ended up happening was when I was working, they weren't using all my skills. I really felt like I had came to the end of the job. And so oftentimes, I'm sure you know this too, Mr. Employer, that change is forced. Just really felt like I was at the point in my career where I needed to make a change. And again, as a result, it's brought me here to you today. I don't think I would have been here had I not been forced to make a change, but I sure am glad I'm here because I believe the wisdom I have, I paid a high price for, and I can make you a lot of money and I'll make some money too. Now, you guys, you can't see me, which is kind of unfortunate about this, but in order for me to be able to be convincible and believable when saying that, I had to look in the mirror several times because if you look like you're having a root canal while you're saying it, you don't believe it. I'm not going to believe you when I'm interviewing you because I'm taught to read your body language. So, and also to me, the word involuntarily separated is a mouthful. So I had to practice just that tagline several times. Point being, I'm not talking negative about my previous employer, and I'm certainly not saying I was fired, and I'm certainly not lying to you either. So, Sandra, we're down to 3 minutes. Do you by chance have a short question?
Well, I put in information about the Climb program and dislocated
Yes.
worker. And I
Yes.
also put in a link to the Minnesota Small Business
Yes.
website because Minnesota does a lot. Has a
Yes.
lot of resources for starting a small business, including grants.
Yes.
Wherever, I don't know where we are in that cycle, but there's a whole, and they have a book that's equivalent to the Bible in size, but you can get it online and then search through it for what you're looking. That takes you step by step through what you need.
Yes.
So yeah, so those are things. Climb, it, someone wants to explain Climb. Do you want to explain that to the group?
Well, I don't run that program. I'm just going to give you just a brief answer. Climb is designed for people who want to go into business for themselves. It is informational, how to do a business plan, but I don't run the program, so I'm not going to get into the weeds on it. This is a situation where if you're interested in that, you need to reach out to your local career force because we're going to be able to connect you to whatever resources you would need to help you get that job and gather the information you would need to be able to make some good decisions on where to proceed from here. So,
And if somebody wanted to know about networking groups,
yes,
they
Sandra,
can,
you can speak to that.
yeah, well, you can find them on the job fair and networking event calendar on careerforce.mn.gov. It's not just job fairs, it's also networking event, and we do one that's hybrid out of the Minneapolis offices. It's now twice a month, the second and fourth Thursday of each month, with a little alteration for November and December because of holidays. But we pick a topic, we do a presentation, we celebrate, we ask people if they have questions. It's a great place to
Yes.
learn about stuff. And I will put a link for the next one in the job, in the email. It's going to be a panel of HR people from social service agencies about getting a job there. And so you can come in virtually. You don't have to be in the Twin Cities. You have to pre-register in order to get a link, just like for the workshop. So yeah, but there are quite a few really great networking groups, and
Yes.
some of them are virtual, so you can travel the state from the comfort of your home.
Yes. I love it, Sandra. I have attended some of Sandra's networking groups too. Powerful, very powerful. And it's such a great way to rub elbows with the people in the industries that you want to find out more information about, or actually hear those wonderful words. We would like to offer you a position. So, you guys, it is 11 o'clock sharp. I just want to tell you thank you for your time today. I also want to encourage you to attend the other workshops. I kind of feel like we just touched the tip of the mountain. Many of you may need some one on one services. We're here to help you. Bottom line, I want you to remember that your wisdom you paid a high price for, and you can make some decent money with it provided you realize the value of it. Let us help you with that. Blessings to you, and you just have a wonderful day.